Rise and Shine Rwanda, it's Friday the 17th of November. Coming up on today's Rise and Shine Rwanda. An insight into the Zimbabwe crisis. How far has broadband connectivity gotten in Rwanda? We find out. Good morning, you're watching Rise and Shine Rwanda with me, Fidelis Karangwa. Over the next half an hour, we'll take you through the news, the business headlines, as well as lifestyle stories from here in Rwanda and around the world. But first, let's take a look into our news features. The Minister for Defense, Mr. James Kabarebe, has reiterated Rwanda's commitment to playing its role in ensuring effectiveness of UN peacekeeping operations. He made the remarks at a two-day United Nations Peacekeeping Ministerial Conference which ended in Vancouver, Canada on Wednesday, where he spoke at a panel on protecting those at risk and highlighted the status of Rwandan participation on various peacekeeping missions. Officials said Rwanda's performance is guided by the country's strategic decision to maintain peace and security around the world and through training preparations of peacekeepers for peacekeeping missions. This week's conference's main purpose was to bring UN members together to align strategic and operational objectives and to discuss ways to ensure the relevance of UN peacekeeping missions in the face of the increasingly complex and dangerous conflicts around the world. In regional news, Tanzanian President John Magufuli has ordered the demolition of state-owned electricity supply firm TANESCO's headquarters in Dar es Salaam to pave way for road construction. Also to be flattened is the fence of offices of the Ministry of Water and Irrigation, which, like the TANESCO's building, are located along the Morogoro Road at Ubungo in the country's largest commercial city. During a site visit at the Ubungo interchange on Wednesday, Dr. Magufuli directed the Tanzania National Road Agency to mark X on the building and walls in readiness of the demolition, saying they sit on a road reserve. Tanzania this year launched Dar es Salaam road upgrade projects costing $88 million for the Ubungo interchange and the $17 million for the Tazara overpass that are intended to ease traffic flow. The World Bank funded Ubungo project commissioned in April by the President is expected to be completed in September 2020, as its actual construction is scheduled to start next month. On international news, South African government ministers are in Harare for crisis talks for ousted President Robert Mugabe and military leaders who seized control. They are trying to reach a deal on the future of Zimbabwe and the man who has led the country for 37 years and is now under house arrest. The South African Development Community Regional Bloc is to hold emergency talks, although they say Mr. Mugabe is insisting he remains the legitimate president. Likewise, the head of the African Union, Guinean President Alpha Condé, has said the UN will in no case accept the military seizure of power, as he invited the military to return to its barracks and return to constitutional order. Let's take a look into this detailed report courtesy of CBSN.
93-year-old Robert Mugabe has ruled Zimbabwe since the country's liberation 37 years ago. But now the military has seized control. CBS News foreign correspondent Deborah Patta is tracking the crisis from Johannesburg.
It looked like a coup as tanks rolled into the nation's capital overnight.
Military police and a tank. Wow, it's real.
And soldiers took over the state broadcaster. But Zimbabwean General Sibusiso Moyo denied it.
We wish to make it abundantly clear that this is not a military takeover.
Instead, Robert Mugabe, who has ruled Zimbabwe by fear for 37 years, is now under house arrest. 93 years old and in failing health, he is regarded by his critics as a brutal tyrant who ran the country into the ground. He's perhaps best remembered for sending out bands of thugs who seized white-owned farms, drove off owners, killed livestock, and then left the land fallow. The economy went into freefall, unemployment soared, the Zimbabwean dollar was printed in denominations of billions. Despite this, Mugabe's grip on power only strengthened. But ultimately, it may have been his wife, Grace, nearly half his age, who was his undoing when he tried to position her as his potential successor. Known as Gucci Grace for her lavish shopping sprees and flamboyant fashion choices, she was Mugabe's secretary before entering politics 2 years ago. Now, her husband is in the military's custody. Power, finally, may be slipping from Mugabe's hands. No one knows where Grace Mugabe is. There are rumors she's already fled the country. And with Robert Mugabe under house arrest, Zimbabweans are waiting to see if he will step down. Roxana?
Todd Moss is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs. He's now a senior fellow at the Center for Global Development. Todd, Robert Mugabe has led Zimbabwe for the entirety of its 37-year existence. Can you give us some background into his rule and what led the country to this point?
Well, you know, Robert Mugabe led a liberation war against Rhodesian white rule and brought the country to independence in 1980. I lived in Zimbabwe in some of the earlier years of Mugabe's time in office, and it was really a thriving economy, really a country on the up. They were exporting food, had mining, agriculture, and really as Mugabe over time has become more and more of a dictator, the politics have gotten very constrained, and the economy has been destroyed by Robert Mugabe and his cronies.
So how popular is he now?
Well, I think among the common person, he's not very popular, but they've got a very elaborate system of intimidation. The party that Mugabe is head of has structures in all of the villages and all of the neighborhoods, and they keep a pretty tight lid on people's activities. You don't want to be a political activist in Zimbabwe.
Some people think Vice President Emmerson Mnangagwa should succeed Mugabe, but others believe the president's wife, Grace, should. Tell us a little bit about these two camps.
Well, you know, the president is 93 years old, so the issue of who comes next is always a hot political topic. Within Mugabe's inner circle, there were really two camps, the First Lady, Grace Mugabe, and the Vice President, Emmerson Mnangagwa, and they'd been kind of jostling. Now, Grace, of course, is the president's wife. She's got some of the younger party members, some of the firebrand. Emmerson Mnangagwa is a longtime ally of President Mugabe, very, very tight with the military chiefs, and in particular with General Chiwenga. And what we've seen is that competition finally came to a head about a week ago when Mugabe fired Mnangagwa in a very public and humiliating fashion, and Mnangagwa had to flee the country for his life. And we're now seeing the military step in. That is the blowback from this palace battle.
Now, you say the military is stepping in. The military insists this is not a coup, is it?
Well, you know, when coups happen, there's always a lot of misinformation, a lot of confusion. Look, the president is under house arrest. The army controls the television station. They control the airport. They're rounding up allies of the First Lady. Several of them have been arrested. This absolutely looks like the classic signs of a coup. It absolutely is a coup.
And this wouldn't be General Chiwenga's first time stepping in. When Mugabe lost the election in 2008, he actually insisted Mugabe should stay. Why the change of heart?
Well, I think it came to a head between these two factions. You know, there's a group of older military men that feel that they should rule Zimbabwe forever. There was a younger group that was getting behind the president, and then there's really the behind the First Lady. Then there's really the majority of the population which thinks that a future Zimbabwe should not be determined by one family, that it actually should be determined by the population as a whole. And fortunately for Zimbabwe, it's an incredibly vibrant, capable society. There are lots of young, capable leaders who could step forward to lead that country into the future. And I'm hopeful that once all of this smoke clears from the coup, that we'll see Zimbabwe have some kind of transitional authority that will lead to free and fair elections next year, and that the country can begin to heal.
And for now, with Mugabe under house arrest, who's in charge?
Well, you know, we don't really know, but it's presumably General Chiwenga. At some point, we would assume that Emerson Mnangagwa will return to the country. He will probably try to paint himself as the savior, that he's going to come back and restore democracy and fight corruption. But we should remember that Emerson Mnangagwa is a longtime security chief for Robert Mugabe. He was the architect of a massacre of at least 20,000 civilians in the southern part of the country in the 1980s. He's been implicated in millions and millions of dollars stolen in diamond revenues. So this is not a man who is going to be able to lead Zimbabwe into a better future. He really represents the past.
And we have, as you know, Todd, the U.S. has placed sanctions on Zimbabwe, so I'm sure it has a great deal of interest in seeing what happens next. Todd Moss, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
To Rise and Shine Rwanda. Now, just yesterday, the Rwanda Internet Governance Forum was held at the Kigali Convention Center under the theme Broadband as a Utility. In attendance were the Minister of ICT, Mr. Philbert Sengimana, among others, who looked into implementing strategies that will speed up broadband coverage in the country. And now joining us in studio is Sangor Gwagwihihi, an IT expert, one of the attendants of this forum. Welcome, Sangwa, to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so now during the Rwanda Internet Governance Forum today, they mentioned that basically what their target is, for this year, was that at least 90% of the population would be connected to the internet, using it on a regular basis, but as numbers have shown, so far they're only at about 88%. What do you feel can be done to basically increase these numbers and encourage consumers to use it more often?
Well, I think a lot has been done, definitely, but we need to work on educating the population on different opportunities that are out there. The Minister of ICT mentioned his trip to Kibuye, where he found some hotels that are not actually equipped with internet, and they didn't know that we have this 4G that is out there. So there's a lot that has been done in terms of education and awareness. Yeah, definitely. The infrastructure has been deployed. The access is one of the issues that we need to work on, but also the content, because you want people to actually find the type of applications and type of software that really respond to their needs and what they have in terms of what they need in terms of their daily needs.
Yeah.
So we've been working a lot with government, with the private sector, with different institutions, and now it's we need to just streamline and make sure those policies are being put in place. Yeah.
Now, I mean, I don't know if I can call it false advertising, but you know, if you hear how people basically people talk about internet in Rwanda, they say it's 4G everywhere. I personally don't even have 4G at my house in Gisozi, and would you say that's false advertising? Also, I know there was internet in the buses, the KBS buses, for a while.
Yeah.
The question is, does that still work? What do you think of that? Would you say it's false advertising, or would you say it's them setting a standard and just working really hard to achieve it?
Well, I think the issue has been on many sides. You need to talk about internet service providers actually getting providing a much better service to the customer.
Yeah.
It comes with a lot of a better support to the customers, also more affordable prices. You also want to make sure that these packages are adapted to the type of customers, right? So if corporations need certain types of internet, end users need maybe something that is more customized for them. So you really need to have a much more adapted marketing and make sure the end user is the one who is at the center of this approach. I think we're not there yet. I think the ISPs want to maybe reevaluate the way they approach these things. The minister was mentioning if you want to earn $100, you might not think of just one person paying $100, but maybe 100 users paying each $1. So this is the type of approach that we would like to see in the market, and we're hoping that everybody's going to play their role.
Yeah. Now, as a frequent user of the internet, both for business and for your job, what do you think of the cost of accessing internet in Rwanda at the moment?
It is quite high, let's be honest. And, you know, I don't really believe in expensive things. I believe more that a service has to be aligned with what you're offering.
Yes.
And at the moment, we're not seeing the value for our money, whether it is corporations, whether it is end users. So we need to really rethink our approaches, because everybody's losing at the moment, you know. These ISPs are not making the money they thought they would be making. The end users are not satisfied. So how can we reevaluate all that? It's been a few years now, and we want to create this type of situations where everybody's winning.
All right, so now Vision 2020 is right around the corner. There's so many businesses popping up. There's, the need for to use internet literally grows with every passing day, including myself. For just even not even business, just social life really. What would you say is your advice to anybody watching our show who is a major role player in this sector, and both as a consumer and as well as somebody who's really involved in this sector? What could you say to them? What would be your advice basically for them to do better, considering that Vision 2020 is just around the corner?
It's just around the corner. Yeah. I mean, I think we need to engage. We need to let everybody know what our rights are in terms of consumers, and support those initiatives that are actually working, but also say, well, we would like this, this, and this to happen, and also propose solutions. You have students coming together saying, well, if we could get this type of package, this is what we would be able to pay.
So basically make the internet packages more friendly to the final consumer.
I think this is one of the...
consumption.
Exactly.
Okay.
But we're also thinking of creating the type of content that could go online and that would trigger much more consumption. Right now, people are just using Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, and maybe Snapchat a little. But we are not seeing Rwandan apps being out there and really winning the customers. Is it a matter of digital literacy, people not knowing how to download an app on a smartphone? Is it a matter of just the data being too expensive? I think it's a little bit of both, and we're seeing that we are at the tipping point. We're at the point where things could literally change. We just need the right, how do you say that in English? Sparkle, for things to just grow and So we're quite excited about what's going to happen. Everybody has to play its role, and let's see what happens.
And I just want to point out that during the forum, they did point out all of us have to play a role that's achieving this goal, and it goes down to the little things like when you pass by somewhere and someone is doing construction and you can see they're basically destroying fiber optic tube. Just do something about it. Report it to the police, because there are actually punishments in place that are supposed to address these issues. If you have any construction that you're planning to do, please consult the Rura, consult all these different organizations. That's just to make sure that where you're going to construct, you're not going to be hindering any internet connectivity. Items or utilities, you know what I mean? So just play your part as a Rwandan for us to achieve this goal, basically.
Definitely.
Perfect. All right, you're watching Rise and Shine Rwanda. Stay with us. We'll be right back after the break. Now, don't forget, we'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, and feedback on what we're talking about here on Rise and Shine Rwanda. Tweet us at Rise and Shine RW. Like us on Facebook and send us your ideas for programs. Check out our Rise and Shine Rwanda YouTube page where you can catch all the shows and reports that we do. Find us on Instagram, Rise and Shine RW. We love to see your pictures. Or check out our Rise and Shine Rwanda website. Well, that's all the time that we have for today, but we love to hear your feedback, so do let us know if you have any idea for the program. You've been watching Rise and Shine Rwanda with me, Fidelis Karango. We're back here same time, same place next week. So do join us then. But for now, from me and the rest of the Rise and Shine Rwanda team, have a very good day. Goodbye.